In this video, I'm going to go over some of the common mistakes made in assignment 1. So I've drawn some of the geometry. I'm not going to draw it all. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to take this outside rectangle. So I'm going to hold Shift and select that. And I'm going to translate it with the join in the Z. And it's going to go 0.75. And I want to go the other way. So remember, to change the direction, I just come here and I type a negative. Push Enter. And I'm going to apply that. Next, I'm going to select, rotate her out of it, these entities here. So I've selected the entities I want to translate. I'm going to end the selection. This time I'm going to choose Move, and I'm going to move them down -3/4. I'm going to apply that. And what do I want to translate? The last thing I translated. So I'm going to come over here to my quick mask and I'm going to tell it to select all the resulting entities. So what I just translated are selected. I'm going to say Enter. This time I'm going to do a join and they're going to come up 31,000. So I'm going to enter 0.031. Zoom in. They're correct. And I'm going to accept that. I'll come back to those in a minute. So at this point I'm going to right click and I'm going to clear my screen colors. And I'm going to fix these before I go any further. To fix those I'm going to do some trimming. So I need to go back here. I'm going to say Trim, Entities. And I'm just going to use the break. I'm going to tell it, we'll zoom in here. I'm going to break this entity where it meets this. So again, this entity where it meets this. So it's broken. Do the same thing at the other end. I'm going to trim this. I might need to zoom in where it meets this. And once again, zoom out, whoops, out, back in where it meets there. And I'm going to say OK. And now those two entities are done. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to select these two entities. I'm going to go back to the transform. And I'm going to translate. This time I'm going to do a move, and I'm going to move those up 31 thou. So now they're at the proper Z level. So I'll say OK. Then I'm going to right click. I'm going to clear my screen colors. Next, I'm going to focus on these holes. I'm just drawing a few of them. So the first thing I want to do is I can translate these down and offset them, or offset them and translate them down. It doesn't matter which. What I do know is that I want to represent the chamfer, so I've drawn these at the 0.488 diameter and I've drawn this at the 0.238 diameter. So I'll just do a translate first. So I'm going to select these entities, and in each case they're 25 thou chamfer. So I'm going to end my selection by pushing Enter, and I'm going to again do a copy. And they're going to come down -0.025. Then I'm going to say OK. I'm going to right click and clear my colors. And now I just want to focus on these circles because they're not the right diameter. So I can do several things to fix them. I can edit them or I can offset them. I'm going to edit these ones and I'll offset this one. So I have them selected. I'm going to select the home, and I'm going to analyze the entity. And this has popped up, so I'm going to put the proper diameter here. So the center point won't change, and the Z won't change, but the diameter will. So instead of 0.488, it's 0.438. I'll push Enter, and it'll apply that one. Then I'll just go Next. So once again, I'm here at the next one. I'm going to highlight the diameter, and I'm going to enter 438. Go to the next hole, and once again I'm going to enter 438. Alright, so now I'm going to zoom in on this hole, and I want to correct this circle. So once again I can go to the transform, and I can tell it several things. But what I want to use here is I want to offset the entity by the amount of 25 thou. I'm going to move it. It's going the wrong way, so I'm going to tell it the opposite side and say OK. And that had the same effect. I'm just going to right click and clear my colors, and I'm going to right click and fit the geometry to the screen. That had the same effect as analyzing these and fixing them. Okay. Now when I translate them to depth, it's this circle I need to select to translate, not this one. Same thing here, this circle, not this one. And you guys will have created some of these as half circles and joined them, that's fine. So the next thing we want to do, I'm going to go back to the top view, is this pocket. Right away you should see I have an issue with my geometry. One of these two shapes isn't quite right. So I should analyze it and fix the one that's wrong. I'm just going to live with it. I want it to point out the mistake. But how do we do this pocket here? So I'm going to go right click and I'm going to go back to the isometric view. And I'm going to zoom in on this geometry in particular. And the other thing I'm going to do is I could hide this on a new level so it's easier to see. And let it close. I'm going to select these entities. Whoops, not that one. These ones. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to select the joining lines. And I want to move them to a new level just to hide them. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to say change level. The level manager window will pop up. I'm going to say move. Don't use active level. Create a new one. Number 2. And I'm going to force the visibility of this level off. I could give it a name, but I don't care. So I'm going to say okay. That just makes it easier to see this geometry. So the first thing I see is I look at section AA of the drawing and it shows this. So I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to select all of this and I'm going to do a translate. So I will select transform, translate. For this one I'm going to do a join and I'm going to have to fix it up. The depth of this is 0.125, so negative 0.125, and I have that and I'm going to accept that for now. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hold shift again and select this geometry and my selection, and I'm going to translate it down because it starts at negative 94 thou. So I'm going to do a move, and this time it's going to be negative 0.094, and I'll apply that. And to check it out, we can rotate around and we see, yeah, that's correct. So I'm going to apply that. Once again, I'm going to hold shift and select all of this and my selection. This time it'll be a join, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter the difference. I don't know what that is, but I know it's going to be another negative, so I'm going to enter negative 0.125 plus the 94 thou. Let it calculate it out. Well, that's 31 thou. So let's for now accept that, and then I want to check it. So this and this should be at the same Z level. I can rotate around and see that. I can also select the entity and I can analyze that. So I'm going to say analyze the entity. It says at negative 125, so it's correct. Then I'm going to check this one as well. Its Z is also at negative 125, so those Z depths are good. So I'm going to close this window. I'm going to right click and I'm going to clear my colors. So the island here in this pocket is correct. What I need to finish off now is some trimming of the pocket. Because what I'm told is, I'm going to extend this line and this line here, but there's a little lip here that's 63 thou down. So I need to do a bit more trimming. So I'm going to go back to trim. I'm going to tell it to trim. I'm going to switch back to 2D mode. I'm at Z0 where I want to be, and I'm going to tell it to trim this entity to here and this entity to here. So I've extended those, and then I'll have to fix the geometry. Next thing I'm going to do, with the break on, I'm going to tell it to break this entity where it meets here, and again, this entity where it meets here. And I'm going to say OK. Then I can select this line and delete it. Okay. And my part now looks like that. Still a couple of issues, and that's fine. I'm going to correct them now. So what I want to do is I didn't mean to delete that line. I want to keep it because I want to move it. Or I could recreate it. So I'm going to go Control Z and I undo the delete. So we'll rotate here. Now I'm going to select this entity. I'm going to go back to Transform, Translate, and this time I'm going to move it down. I could do the join and then delete the entity I just deleted, or do the move and add 2 lines. Let's do the join and delete. So the depth here is negative the 16th, the 63 thou. And I'm going to say OK for now. Right click, clear my colors, and now I need to delete that entity. So I'm almost there. I can see that. But what there would be a line coming in across here, and this also would be down at the 16th. So I'm going to select this, this, and this, and I'm going to move those. So back into transform, translate. This time I'm moving them, and they're going to move down the 16th, the 63 thou, and I'm going to say OK. And then I need to ask myself, well, what's missing? I'll right click, and I'll clear the colors. So I need to do a couple of things. To make it correct, I'm going to go back to wireframe, line, still in 2D construction. So I'm going to switch it to 3D or change my Z depth and leave it in 2D. But I want a line from here to here, and then one from here to here, and I'll say OK. The last thing I need to do is to trim. And again, I'm going to turn on trim. One entity, I want to trim this where it meets here, and this where it meets here, and I'm going to say OK. So now that pocket is correct, other than I didn't correct the position of the island. So let's just right click and fit the geometry to our screen. And let's look at how we do some of the most common errors that I saw in the assignment.